Welcome into Around the Felt. We got the NFL Wildcard Weekend recap, and boy, was it a crazy one. A lot of upsets, a lot of blowouts, just an overall good weekend of football. Colin, how are we doing?
Doing well, my friend. My picks, not so hot. I mean, the underdogs were barking this weekend. Not what I anticipated, but, just to break down what we did this week, Reagan, you went against the spread 2-4. A little bit better than me at 1-5. You went 4-2 straight up. I went 3-3 straight up. So you beat me by one in each category for this week. But hey, we got next week. I'll get you back. Don't worry about it. Congrats, dude. Must feel nice for you.
Yeah. Thanks for asking me. So, if you're asking me how I feel, it feels really good. And I'm looking straight into the camera here. It feels freaking awesome. Because not only did I beat him on the money line, I beat him on the spread. And not only did I beat him on the spread, but I beat him on the money line. I mean, I just waxed this guy this weekend. So overall, just giving you the winning picks, putting you guys in a good position to succeed. And, I do it every freaking week. If you look back at it, during this recent playoff stretch, I've been on fire.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that's probably the best weekend you've had in the Round the Felt playoff history. So good for you, brother. But hey, we got some news to touch on in the coaching world. Yes, the Patriots did hire Mike Vrabel. It just made too much sense. Everyone knew it. I mean, it seems to me like most Patriots fans are really happy with this hire. More of a culture kind of guy. Some Patriots fans probably want to go in more of a offensive-minded head coach. But, Ben Johnson was an option on the table. But, hey, Vrabel, clearly he wanted to be back in New England. It seemed like he was using the other teams as leverage. And there were rumors that the reason he was no longer in Tennessee was because they didn't like how much he loved the Patriots and the Patriot way. So, hey, now he gets to bring back that Patriot way that he was a part of. Your thoughts on this hire, Reagan? I think it's a home run.
I think it sucks. I think he should have gone to the Jets. But no, it made sense. I mean, he's got the ties to the Patriots. So overall, it's a good move for them. I'm not going to lie. I feel bad for Mayo in the sense that it's like, hey, your team would have been, primed for the top. They're taking the 4th overall pick for the Patriots. And they do have the most cap space out of any NFL team. So it's a very attractive job. And it seems like they did figure out the quarterback position, or at least they think they did. I mean, Drake May showed enough to me that he can be their franchise quarterback. So they're in a great spot. Mike Vrabel comes into one of the better situations for a head coach taking over a new job. So I expect them to be one of those teams that may be a fringe wild card right out of the gates next year.
Really? You think they can make that big of a jump next year?
Dude, well, think about it. I mean, Drake May, if he can take a nice year 2 jump with all that cap space, it's over $125 million. So that's a lot. I know they have a lot of holes to plug, but they still got some nice young talent there. They have the number 4 overall pick. So whether they trade back or end up taking, a player there's a lot of holes to fill, but they could go get Drake May, a good wide receiver. They could go adjust the edge. They're going to have, their choice of whatever skill position. Cause I think it goes Ward, Sanders, or Sanders, Ward. And then at 3, I'm not sure what the Giants will do, but regardless, they'll have, a premium player at 4 that they'll fall into. So they're in a really good spot.
Yeah, it looks like there's a good chance that they end up with one of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, if they so please, or adding
McMillan.
A tackle, or McMillan, or adding a tackle to support Drake May. But, hey, they got the most cap space in the league. We'll know more about their draft plans after free agency in March.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't be shocked if Hunter falls.
What do you
mean?
I
think about it,
how far?
Like 5 or 6.
Consider falling? I mean,
even maybe back end of the top 10, 9, 10.
I don't see that happening.
I mean, think about it. I could see the Giants going and taking McMillan or Carter. I could see the Patriots doing the same. I'm not sold that he's a shoo-in for number 3.
I don't think he gets past the Jags at 5. No chance.
Yeah, we'll see how it really depends. I think a lot's going to change between now and then. It depends how a lot of these guys do off the combine. There's always random buzz, even Jackson Dart. I could see that name getting a lot of buzz. I mean, he really missed out on not having the college football playoffs, and we might be talking, and he might be talked up so much that he could get drafted 3 to the Giants. People have totally ruled out a third quarterback getting drafted there. But I mean, and think about it, like last year, all of a sudden, Drake May was getting talked about going number 1 overall. And then the next year, it's like right before the draft and weird things happen. And the year prior, Anthony Richardson kind of got his name talked about like a lot going into the draft, and his status went up. So weird stuff happens every year.
No, it certainly does. And I was actually listening to Mel Kiper today, and he's like, what am I missing here with Jackson Dart? Like as a quarterback, he's like, he's easily my QB3. Like Milroe just really killed his draft stock down the stretch. That Oklahoma game, that Michigan game really hurt him, where it's like Jackson Dart's that clear QB3. And Kuiper's like, he's got the athletic traits. He can move. He makes a lot of wow throws. He throws the ball on time. Like, what am I missing here with Dart? So I could see Dart sneaking into the first round for sure, especially in a draft like this where there's not those top tier quarterbacks. There's not as many, and the supply does not meet the demand. So I could see it. My dream scenario for the Giants, obviously at 3, if they can't get Shador or Cam Ward, is take Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, whoever you think's the better player, and then maybe get Jackson Dart with pick number 30. I think they have 33. So the second, 34.
No.
They have the second pick in the second round, pick 34. Yeah. So, I mean, that'd be an ideal scenario. But anyways, a lot of time to talk about the draft. Let's move on. The Cowboys and Mike McCarthy part ways. Wow. I mean, I didn't see this one coming. McCarthy wins 12 games for you guys 3 years in a row, then goes through an entire season in which Jerry Jones didn't really do anything in free agency, just kind of took the year off last year. You lose Dak Prescott early in the year, and the team shows fight down the stretch. Yeah, they didn't make the playoffs, but for Mike McCarthy in his 4 years there, granted, never made the deep playoff run, but I'm just curious who Jerry Jones thinks he's going to get that's better. And I know Deion Sanders' name is being floated out there. He spoke with Deion, with Coach Prime.
Yeah,
it'd be crazy. But Coach Prime said, he's like, I'd only coach in the NFL if I'm coaching both my sons. And then, like, if you're going to say Coach Prime's going to do it, could they trade Dak Prescott to the Tennessee Titans for the first overall pick?
Would the Titans do that?
I think if I'm the Titans, I'd rather have Dak Prescott than Cam Ward or Shador Sanders.
Would you?
So that's the big debate. It's like, obviously you got to pay Dak a shit ton of money, but these quarterbacks, they're not elite prospects. They're good quarterback prospects. I mean, they're not elite.
Dak's 31, and I mean, that's still young for quarterback age, but it's like, do you want to give up? Like when they're also not in like the window of like competing now with the Titans. So that aspect's a little weird to me. I don't know, man.
It'd be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it would be crazy.
I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just throwing the idea out there. And then it's also like,
that aspect. It's like, if you're another team, like, do you just go out and draft Shiloh knowing that, like, if that is a stipulation for the Cowboys, like knowing like now they got to give you assets, so like you'll get more assets in return that you could just ship them right out?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm curious now because Dallas waited so long to move on from McCarthy and part ways, which apparently they never even got deep into talk. So didn't seem like Jerry Jones was even that interested. But you missed your opportunity to interview Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn until now the Lions are eliminated. So I don't think Dallas is going to hire their next coach for a little bit, but we'll see, man. We'll see. It's not as attractive as a job as I think it once was.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That job is like more so like the market than anything. It's like coaching for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, a lot of these older guys, it was probably like their dream. Well, you'd imagine their dream was to play in the league. And, if you ask most guys of that age, like what their favorite team was or like what team growing up they would get to coach, it would be the Cowboys. So I think there's still something to be said of being the coach of the Dallas Cowboys versus, maybe some of these other teams that are better situations on paper, but at the end of the day, it's the Dallas freaking Cowboys. So there's something to be said for that.
For sure. It's the name, but it's also like the cap situation. You don't have Dak Prescott under contract. You got to extend Micah Parsons. There's a lot of holes in that team. They got carried by their stars. And then you always have Jerry Jones breathing down your neck.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. It's such a weird hypothetical. I doubt Sanders goes there. They'll get somebody. I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting now. It just sucks, like, being one of those teams that, was waiting to get our head coach, like as a Jet fan, because now you add another domino into the wrinkle. So it really sucks that aspect.
Yeah, and a job that's certainly more appealing than New Orleans or Vegas, I'd say.
Yeah.
The Texans waived Deonte Johnson. Wow, that only lasted 2 weeks. So not major news, but Deonte Johnson's name has been on this pod a lot, given where he's floated around this season. So just felt like we should talk about Deonte Johnson, not even cracking the lineup for Houston when, I mean, honestly, they won pretty easily against the Chargers this weekend, so they must be fine without Deonte. But it would have been nice to have him against Kansas City, I guess. Maybe he just didn't buy into the program like what happens in Baltimore.
Yeah, that's the thing, because, like, he can still play. I mean, we saw it with Carolina, so there's obviously the talent level still there. But, I mean, he's definitely a guy that's, like, played his way out of a lot of money in a negative way. Like
100%.
Somebody will pay him in the offseason. Like, I'm sure he'll still get, maybe like $4 or $5 million, but he's definitely really hurt himself getting a long-term deal. So he'll probably get a 1-year prove-it deal where he can obviously then get a longer contract from there. But I'd be shocked if anyone offers him more than 1 year after seeing all this. I mean, teams do talk.
100%. And he left a spot in Carolina. They weren't winning, but a team desperate for wide receiver help goes to a team with Super Bowl aspirations and a very good program under John Harbaugh. Has been there for a long time. Didn't work out. Then you go to Houston. Also didn't work out. It's just really, really strange. I don't know what team's going to want to dip their toes in the Deonte Johnson pool, but, I hope it's not the Giants. I'll say that.
Nah, that's not a bad number 2. Why not? Who says no?
He'll probably quit in the team by week 6. So
there you go.
I just don't want to allocate dollars to that situation. But that wraps up the news. Let's get Drock's ass in here.
What's up, boys?
What's going on, Drock?
Yo.
We forgot to mention, smack the wheel this weekend on Wildcard Weekend, baby. Nico Collins, cash me. Thanks to Colin. Drock didn't hit a fucking wheel, even though he was on the fucking wheel for 3 times.
Magic hands, baby.
All right, let's dive into these questions. First guest with the question, Caleb. Let's dive into it. Is it fair to say that Baker Mayfield single-handedly lost that game for the Bucs?
I'd say, if you're going to blame it on anybody, it's Todd Bowles. I mean, you saw the clock management, and also at the end of the day, I mean, Baker Mayfield has been the biggest factor for this team, and then you only let him throw the ball, I believe it ended up being less than 20 passing attempts. So obviously it was working with Bucky Irving, but with how good Baker Mayfield's been all season, to only let him throw the ball that little, I think was a mistake. But yeah, if I'm pointing the finger at anybody, it's Todd Bowles and his clock management.
Yeah, the clock management issues this season have been a big storyline, and Todd Bowles did himself no favors. And we're both on the boat, Reagan, where we don't think Todd Bowles is an elite coach. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. I mean, Baker, 15 of 18 for $185, 2 touchdowns, only took 1 sack. Yeah, the fumble was bad, but it's hard to pin that on Baker. Like, I don't even know. Did the Commanders even punt the ball?
No, that actually, I heard a stat today.
They did not punt the ball. They did not even punt the ball. So I know Tampa Bay's defense only let up 23 points, but still, you didn't force a single punt. You could point to that being a reason.
Yeah, dude. Well, I heard a stat. Jaden Daniels is now not only the only rookie quarterback to start in a game where your team didn't punt, but he's done it 3 times. So there were 3 games this year where his team did not punt the ball once, and that's happened only 3 times, and it was all him for a rookie quarterback. Like, obviously, it's happened with non-rookie quarterbacks, but that just speaks to how good he's been at moving the ball.
Bad news for the NFC East.
Yeah.
Second question. Do you still view Jordan Love as a long-term answer for the Packers?
It's so tough. Yeah. You go first.
I mean, yeah, now I don't think Jordan Love's a top 7, 8 quarterback in football, but the dude still doesn't have that many starts under his belt. You know what I mean? Like, I know he's signed that mega deal already, but he sat out his first 3 years. He has been really good down the stretch last year and this year. Obviously, not a good game and a horrible game against Philadelphia. But let's not act like going to Philadelphia with that defense is an easy task. You know what I mean? Like, Jordan Love made some noise in the postseason last year. So just because they fell short this year, yeah, he threw up a dud. It happens. It's not ideal. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I still think Jordan Love's the long-term solution here in Green Bay.
Yeah, I would say he's a long-term solution. I mean, I definitely this last 3 or 4 games has definitely made me like look back at it and be like, hey, maybe we were like a little too giddy to just like crown him a top 10 quarterback, because I really don't think he is. I think we overrated him a little bit. I mean, obviously, he's turnover prone, but it did seem like, they relied a lot on Josh Jacobs this season. And when, they had to actually throw the ball, it just never really got it going. I mean, they definitely aren't setting him up for the most success without getting him a true number one. Because, while they do have a lot of young guys that could potentially become a number one, there's no true alpha wide receiver on this offense. So I think if they can address that in the offseason, that'll definitely help his growth. Because you look at a lot of the other young quarterbacks, like they at least have an alpha wide receiver or an alpha tight end that, helps them develop. And, you could point to, I would guess you would say Jaden Reed's their best. I mean, but still, that's not like, I don't see him being more than a number 2 at best throughout his career. So they really got to get him someone in this offseason and, maybe don't rely on the run game so much during the season, or I don't know, because a lot of the games, it felt like it was just the Josh Jacobs show all game. So it felt weird from last year where we saw Jordan Love kind of step back and be more of a pocket passer last year.
Last question for Caleb. Which of these first-round exit teams will make the most improvements this offseason and be the scariest contenders next year?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's a really good question.
So your options are Minnesota. Who knows what's going to happen with Sam Darnold? Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Denver, Houston. No, I'm sorry, Pittsburgh and Los Angeles, the Chargers. I think Pittsburgh's out because, we know what they're going to do next year. They're probably going to go 9-8, 10-7, and lose again in the first round if they make it. Denver is interesting because they get a lot of that dead cap off their books, so they can build around Bo Nix. In year 2, you'd expect Bo Nix to make even bigger strides. But for me, it's like Minnesota was the best team this year, and Darnold had a career year. It's hard to say that McCarthy is going to be able to replicate what Darnold did, but it's also hard to think that McCarthy is going to be so bad where the Vikings aren't back in the dance next year. So, the Vikings defense was awesome this year, but another thing to look out for is if they lose Brian Flores, that'd be another monster loss for that defense, which really flourished under him, particularly their pass rushers. So if I had to pick one team to make the deepest run next year from this bunch, I might go with the Packers, dude. I honestly might go with the Packers.
Yeah, for me, it's an easy one. I'm going with the Chargers. I mean, they have $77 million in cap space going into next year, so that's a lot. I really do think they'll make a conscious effort to, get him another wide receiver in that room, because I don't think Quentin Johnson will ever become anything more than a 3. While Ladd is very good in the slot, it would be nice to pair him with somebody else, get Herbert another weapon. I mean, we obviously know the offensive line is sick. And if they can address some more into that defense as well and maybe get a running back in the draft, I really do think the Chargers can take that next step. I think that was a dud of a playoff game this year, but overall, I mean, they already exceeded expectations. I mean, they were a 5-win team last year, picking in the top 5. And they went to a playoff team the next year. So they went from 5 to 11. So it's already a huge success. I think they'll take another step forward. I think they could be pushing for the division next year. Denver will be interesting too, but Kansas City's got to watch out because the Chargers and Broncos are here, and they're only going to get better.
See, my only counter to that is, and I went with an NFC team for this reason, it's just hard to predict an AFC team to make a deep run when you do have Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore, which are going to be the horses again next year with their quarterbacks. So I went the route of picking an NFC team to make the biggest improvement, in my mind, advance to at least a divisional.
Yeah, and I no, that's fair. I just think Justin Herbert, I don't think the drop off, and while he played bad and everyone's gonna be like, oh, well, did you just see the playoff game? Yes, he played terrible, but I don't think the drop off between him and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson is that big that if you can get some more talent around him, that he couldn't get to that next level, because we've seen him be very good. And this year, his numbers weren't anything crazy, but they didn't need to be anything crazy. It just wasn't the style of the team. They wanted to grind you out, play good defense, and just run the ball in the second half. And it worked out well. Obviously, they made the playoffs. But I think if you add some more weapons, he can become that quarterback that we're talking about that's top 5. And I really did think if they made a run this playoffs, we would be having that conversation. So, to me right now, you can make a debate. He already is that number 5 quarterback in the league. Because I think Burrow's slotted in at 4 after those big 3 you announced. And then number 5 is wide open, in my opinion.
I agree with you, and I also agree that Justin Herbert's the best quarterback of the bunch of teams that just got eliminated. And it's funny that we were just having the conversation last week, like, hey, where would you rank Herbert if he does make a deep run? And then he just threw up a dud. And now everyone's like, oh, Herbert's overrated. Oh, and it's like, hey, you know what? They already overexceeded expectations. Like, how many star quarterbacks have gone one and done in the postseason and just not had a good performance in the postseason? Like, it's one game. I get it. I understand Herbert has to play better in these big games because, I mean, they blew it to Jacksonville a couple years ago too. And that now obviously Brandon Staley, a big part of that, but so was Justin Herbert, right? So at some point you do have to show up in the big moments. And that's a similar thing that's been said about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. But as they've gotten deeper in their careers, they have had great playoff performances, just haven't gotten over the hump. The next step for Herbert is let's see those good playoff performances and get your team moving on to the next rounds.
It's also funny because I would say if the Washington is to somehow upset Detroit this weekend, I think people are going to be saying Jaden's number 5, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I don't even think that's really an overreaction at this point. I mean, right now before this, I'd be like, all right, maybe it's a little too early. But I mean, if they go and beat Detroit in Detroit, that probably means Jaden obviously that means the defense would have stepped up as well. But that means Jaden probably had a really good game. So I think if they somehow are able to upset Detroit, like I think he might be number 5. And it might not even be a debate at that point because that's a very impressive road win.
I agree with you 100% because I don't think there's any way they hold Detroit to like under 24 points. So therefore, Jaden Daniels would have to have a great game. And if you go on the road and beat Detroit and go to the NFC Championship game as a rookie, I mean, yeah, I'd probably argue he's number 5 too.
Yeah, although you might not want that, Commanders fans, because the last rookie quarterback to do that was Mark Sanchez. So tread lightly.
Speaking of Commanders fans, let's jump to Walmart.
Hey,
how about them commies?
How about him?
If you could take one non-QB out of the teams in the playoffs and put them on your favorite team, who would you take?
I'm a little confused.
I think he wants if you to pick any player right now to add to the Commanders, do it. And then he also texted me and said, now pick a guy for the Giants and for the Jets that you would take. Any player that's still alive, non-quarterback. So
if there's any player we could add to the commies, we'll start with that.
Yeah, what player would we add to the commies here?
Give me Patrick Mahomes. Like Jaden's not taking.
It's added to your team.
He said non-quarterback.
No, I'm
too,
fucking around.
No, it's if you could take one non-quarterback out of the teams in the playoffs and put them on your favorite team, who would you take?
Yes, but he told me to do it for the Commanders and the Giants and the Jets. That's what I just said. Okay. Yeah, so
hey, stop fighting. Give me Ben Sinnott for the Jets. We just need that next level tight end. I know he'll love that. He'll probably be chuckling.
It's like, what do you want to do for the Commanders, right? Do you want to help that defensive line?
Yeah,
do you want to add
to
this? Do you want to add to the secondary? I don't
100%.
think. I think it's a little greedy trying to add Barkley or Henry to the backfield because Brian Robinson's been very serviceable. You could argue to add a receiver like a Nico Collins to pair with Terry. I wouldn't hate that.
You could go defense for sure. I just don't. No, you know who you go because the Commanders like. I would say you go D-line. I think I would go Chris Jones.
Yep, Chris Jones.
Right,
Chris Jones has got to be the pick.
That's
super chalk. That's super chalk. If I'm going to not go the Chris Jones route, I'm between Trent McDuffie and Kyle Hamilton to add to that secondary, which they need help because Marshawn Lattimore did not do very well against Mike Evans, and it kind of looks like Lattimore might have lost a step. I know he's coming off the hammy, but I mean, that was their biggest concern going into the season on the defensive side of the ball was the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate that at all. I mean, another one you could say, just factoring in the age aspect, but I mean, I guess it's win now. But the way he's been playing, I mean, you could say Jared Verse on the edge as well. He's just been tearing it up for the Rams, so I wouldn't hate that either.
Yeah, if you're going for the future.
And I mean, then you could probably make a case for some offensive linemen as well.
Yeah, and to add the Giants, I mean, it'd be Chris Jones to pair with Dexter Lawrence. That'd be pretty damn good on the interior, dude. I mean, I don't know how you're running on that D-line. You got the edge with Brian Burns. Kayvon not on the same level, but yeah, that's a pretty nasty D-line. I'll take that.
Yeah, for the Jets, I mean, that was probably our biggest issue was, stopping the run. So I don't know. I mean, I'll
give you Chris Jones. I'll take Trent McDuffie for the Giants. There you go.
Yeah, bro. I mean, Yeah, I mean, you know what? Just give me your kicker. Actually, no, yeah, give me your kicker. Give me Zane Gonzalez, bro. Our kicking, we went through like 5 kickers this year. I'll take Zane Gonzalez just so we could be like, hey, we would have been like 7-10 if we had a kicker.
That's all the questions tonight, boys.
All right, thank you, Drock. Appreciate you, man. Let's get into these games, huh?
Let's do it.
Well, starting us off on Saturday, the Houston Texans, man, they steamrolled the Chargers 32-12. Chargers, it looked early on like they were going to control this ball game, but they couldn't finish drives. A couple of field goals in the first quarter. Then Nico cashed the wheel.
Yeah, it's very nice cash. Started out with a bang.
Got Houston the lead, 10-6, and then they just took control in the second half, dude. CJ Stroud threw for 282, a touchdown. Not the sexiest stat line, but pretty damn good. Throw for 282. Joe Mixon was a beast, 106 and a touchdown. That was one of my biggest concerns for Houston was, Mixon wasn't as hot down the stretch. And this Chargers defense, no slouch, but getting Joe Mixon back on track, I think, was very important for this team. And then, of course, Nico Collins did his thing for 122 and a touchdown with not much else behind him in the receiving game. CJ Stroud kind of divvied it out. Deonte Johnson did have a catch for 12 yards, though, Reagan. They were like, that's all we need from Deonte. We'll move on here. For the Chargers, I mean, it was just the Lad McConkey show, let's be honest. Herbert's completion percentage below 50, 14-38. He got sacked 4 times. Rare for the Chargers to allow that many sacks and for Herbert to take that many sacks. Also rare for Justin Herbert to throw 4 interceptions. That's not ideal. That was disgustingly bad. The run game, non-existent, which kind of seemed to be the theme down the stretch for the Chargers. So this is a loaded running back draft class. Well, if we do, I don't think they'll take one in the first round, but on day 2, I could see him adding a back to complement Justin Herbert. And then Ladd at 9 for $197 and a touchdown. That's awesome. Quentin Johnson had 5 targets, not a single catch. Got clamped up by Stingley. And other than that, Will Dissly had 16 yards. So it was just Lad McConkey on offense. Herbert with the 4 picks, not good. But that Chargers, that Texans defense, you got to tip the cap, man. You really do. And for a Houston team that coming into the playoffs, when they fully started their guys in week 17, got steamrolled by Baltimore, this is a big confidence boost going into Kansas City next week, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm honestly going to become a Texans hater because they just piss me off because this is now 2 years in a row where I was like, drinking the Kool-Aid.
You did say it last week.
This very cute wild card team that was balling out down the stretch is going to come into Houston and kick the struggling Texans in the teeth. Well, guess what? I didn't learn my lesson from last year, and it was the Browns Texans all over again. Where the Browns got up early last year with the Kareem Hunt touchdown. Chargers get up early with some takeaways and 2 field goals from Cameron Dicker, and it's like, all right, we're off to a good start, and then it's over. Texans win, and then they go into Kansas City, just like last year. Or no, they went into Baltimore last year. No. I don't know. But regardless, I'm going to stop doubting the Texans, but I'm definitely going to be a hater just because getting burnt back-to-back years definitely stings. It's like, I don't want to hate the Texans, but it's just like, recently they proved that, they couldn't do anything. And then coming into the playoffs, it was like, where was this down the stretch? Like, this doesn't look like the team that, snuck into the playoffs because they were the benefactor of a bad division. Like, this looks like a legit football team, especially that defense. Like, where was that all year?
Yeah, right.
And even the
Will
offense.
Anderson was awesome. Derek Stingley was awesome.
Yeah, and even the offense looked better. So I really don't think they can beat Kansas City. If the defense plays like that, they could probably hang around, especially because Kansas City, most of the regular season proved that they like to play games close. So would I be shocked if it's, maybe a 1-score game or even tied, or maybe the Texans even have a lead going into the 4th? No. I'll probably take them spread just because I think it's like 9 points or something, right? I didn't see the lines, but
I didn't see the line either.
And Mixon looked good too. It was, as the game went on, he just got stronger and stronger. They actually beat the Chargers with their style of football where it's like, get up early in the first half and then kind of run it down your throat in the second half and play good defense. They literally beat the Chargers with their brand of football. So that was definitely impressive to me. But yeah, I ate crow on this one. I couldn't have been more wrong.
Spread is 8.5, so you're very close there, my friends.
Yeah.
My biggest concern with Houston is I almost don't know what team is going to show up each day. You know what I mean? I feel like they don't have the consistency that's needed for a team that's going to make a Super Bowl run. Definitely got to be happy. They won a playoff game for the second year in a row under DeMeco Ryans and with CJ Stroud. Certainly bodes well for their future, but I think they're running into a buzzsaw here in Kansas City. I think they're done this weekend.
Yeah, it's funny too because I saw another graphic that was funny. It was all the AFC head coaches have ties to Andy Reid because obviously McDermott was his DC, Harbaugh was his special teams coordinator, and then DeMeco Ryans played for him as a player in Philadelphia. So that was kind of cool too.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah, no, that's a fun fact. I got it on my Snapple bottle.
Wait, actually? No,
yeah,
you did it.
Yes, I did.
No,
I swear.
Are you fucking serious? That's hilarious.
No, dude, that's not
true.
really?
Did you really?
No. He just bought a Snapple like this week, and they already have that printed and shipped out. Like,
yeah, it was an NFL edition Snapple. Why is that surprising?
All right,
NFL's king, bro.
Go dig it out of your trash can, and then let me know.
I already threw it out, but if I had it, I would show it to you.
All right, there we go. Let's move on. Baltimore taking care of Pittsburgh 28-14. I mean, at least I got one right against the spread. It was the one I was most confident in, was Baltimore.
Hey,
I mean, the writing was on the
wall. I was in my kingdom.
You know, the writing was on the wall for this one. Mentioned it last week. Steelers riding a 4-game losing streak going to the playoffs. Never a recipe for success. It certainly against a buzzsaw like Baltimore, and Baltimore just beat their ass a couple weeks ago. So saw this one coming, and the Steelers' defense just was not in the level that they had been in previous years. And their offense stayed on the same level where they struggle to score 20-plus points in the postseason. And, you know, Russell Wilson, if you just look at the stats, 272 touchdowns, no picks. It looks nice. You got sacked 4 times, a big problem with Russell Wilson. The run game was non-existent. Najee Harris, 6 for 17. Knew that was going to be an issue against this Baltimore front. George Pickens, at least he had 87 yards and a touchdown. That was good to see. But, you know, his comments after the game were not so kind. Did you see him, Reagan?
Yeah, well, I was I did see it. It was like, you know, are you optimistic? Or it was like, has the offense improved? Yeah. Are you optimistic for the future? No, or something like that.
He goes, nah. That was it. It's like, dude, this guy's just got it. He's clearly frustrated, and I get it because he has the talent, but it's also like you aren't
helping.
A superstar and you aren't helping your team with these constant comments and demeanors that just, I feel like just bring the locker room down. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not a huge George Pickens guy from a locker room or a team perspective, like a team building perspective. You can't deny he has talent though. And, you know, I thought when Russell Wilson first stepped into the starting role, he was starting to unleash George Pickens, but clearly they're not on the same page anymore. It's going to be an interesting conversation in the offseason. What do the Steelers do? Russ says he wants to be back, and there's unfinished business. Justin Fields wants to be back because he doesn't want to learn a new playbook. But you got to think in Pittsburgh, something's got to change. It's not going to be Mike Tomlin. It's got to be at the quarterback position, or they do have to add more weapons to that offense for sure. But I don't know, just a really Mike Tomlin special here, just getting their ass kicked in the first round. Now have not won a playoff game in 8 years. So tough for them. For Baltimore, I mean, what can you say? Lamar Jackson threw for 175, 2 touchdowns, only 5 incompletions. Also added 81 to the ground. Horace Henry, as he does this time of year, $186, 2 touchdowns, took over in the second half to kind of seal this game. So, and receiving-wise, Isaiah Likely 3 for 53, solid, but hey, you didn't really need a lot from your receivers here. Bateman scored. Justice Hill scored. It's nice that they're able to beat down the Steelers without Zay Flowers. I'm sure they're going to want Zay Flowers back for this upcoming matchup with Buffalo this weekend.
Yeah, I was actually in Baltimore for this one. It was a good time. I was rocking Steelers stuff at the bar, so that was, cool. I thought I would get chirped more, but I think honestly, in all the Ravens fans' hearts of hearts, it's just like, we're not worried about the Steelers. Like, we're already looking at Buffalo. So I think that was kind of funny. I mean, I got some videos of me just being like, chirping them. But I've also never been at a bar before on a game day in the city. I don't know if you guys have, where you've like been in that city's bar. And I guess it's different for the Jets and Giants because there's no like real Like I don't know where you would point to that you're like,
We'll
this
have
is
the
central
alcoholic hop
location.
in here. Yeah, I've done it. I completely agree with you, Reagan. It's so true. Like you don't realize if like sometimes there's even diehard fans that will just go to the bars during that game or wherever it is or whatnot. Pittsburgh's a big city as well. I don't know for playoff football, but I know for just regular football that the bars are just extremely packed. Philly's another city that also just goes crazy because of Xfinity Live. Hate Philly though, but no, it's facts. Especially I think it's like the stadiums that have like the venues outside, like right outside, are huge.
Yeah, it was really cool because even like when the game started, everybody's just like there's no like people flirting with chicks and stuff or like even like everybody's just looking up at the TVs watching it. It's like you could hear a pin drop like when the game's going on. And if something good happened for the Ravens, the crowd erupted, and if something good happened for the Steelers, there me and a few of my Steeler fans out there, like we got lit. But it was weird. It was cool. It was cool. I mean, and I guess that just speaks to the fact that my team hasn't been in the playoffs in 14 years. But even if they were, I mean, I don't know as a Jet fan or like a Giant fan, like if there's one, there's not, because it's so spread out, where like Baltimore's obviously, and like Dave was saying, Philly and Pittsburgh, like I guess aren't as big, I guess. So weird experience, cool experience. We were drinking a lot all day. We got to the bar at 11. So, by that point, was I really retaining a lot of this game? No. But what I did see is, it was just the dominating fashion from the Ravens from the start. I mean, by halftime, it was like, it really sucks to be trying to chirp people right now. I also ran into some kids from our high school. That was cool. Ethan Pascalone and Bamba and some of those guys actually went to the game, and they just happened to be at the same bar in Baltimore as us. So that was definitely pretty cool. I know. I was like, of all the bars in Baltimore, you guys just happened to be here, and they were going to the game. Like, I'll get tickets. And I was like, actually debating it because it was like, at that point, it was like $100. But I was like, it's a little cold for that. So, but
I have a debate topic. Topic for you. If the Jets make the playoffs, are you going to watch the game in the comfort of your own home on your own couch with maybe a few select others, or are you going to a bar? If the Giants, for me, are in a big game, a playoff game, there's no way I'm at a bar watching it. I am watching it in the comfort of my own home, locked in on my TV, blasting the sound.
I mean, I guess it's different because my team hasn't been in the playoffs in so long. So if we, get in, I actually might go to the game just because it's been so long, especially if it's a home game, just knowing like that environment would be one that you don't want to miss for the Jets because it's been so long. But yeah, I mean, it's either at the game or in my home. It's not at a bar now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad we're on the same page there.
Because, I'm there on like business in the sense where like I'm trying to watch the game, not like other business.
Yeah. Certainly no other business for you. But let's move on to Bills. I mean, they did Bills things in Buffalo at this time of year. Steamrolled Denver 31-7. Hey, this game started off. Bo Nix. Nice little deep shot to his boy, Troy Franklin. The only touchdown of the game. The only points of the game for Denver. And it was like before you can even look up, like you're still trying to get the game on. And it's like, oh shit, Denver's up 7-0. This is crazy. They might make some noise here against this Buffalo defense. But then no.
Mm-hmm.
Bo Nix struggled, threw for $144 and a touchdown, only completed 13 passes. Very unlike what we've seen from Bo Nix down the second half of the season. Again, the run game non-existent for Denver, so it was tough for them to move the ball here. That Bills defense, I mean, you got to tip your cap. That was a really, really impressive performance. Josh Allen did his thing, 272, 2 touchdowns, also added 46 in the ground. James Cook, another touchdown. I mean, it's like this guy scores every week now. Everyone wants to take Josh Allen to score. James Cook's probably the better value. Also ran it for 120 yards. Curtis Samuel scored. Ty Johnson scored, who's really carved out a role for himself in Buffalo. That touchdown was pretty sweet. Can't believe his feet didn't touch the chalk. But, hey, Buffalo, man, they're now 9-0 at home this year. But the big one's next week against Baltimore. We'll see if they can improve to 10-0.
Yeah, I was eating my breakfast when this game started, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, I had to put my egg sandwich down. I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, we got a ball game on our hands. The Broncos came out of the gates firing,
yeah,
and I almost choked on. I'm like, "Whoa!" But no, came out of the gates firing, and then it was just like, yeah, like they're not the same level. But I did have I was a little optimistic. I'm like, damn, like Broncos are going to cover here. Like, they might make this a game. And then it was just that Bills defense was like, yeah, that's not happening again. And then, Josh Allen just took over on the offensive side of things. It was a good game. But at the end of the day, I think both teams left this content in the sense where, like, Denver, it was house money. And it's cool because I work with some people that are from Denver. They're not the biggest football fans. They're in the entertainment side of the world, but they have a lot of connections out in Denver. And I was like, what was the vibe from a lot of your friends out there? And they're like, they knew they weren't winning that game. They were just happy to be there. They're happy Bo Nix looks legit. They're happy that for everything that went down last year with Russell Wilson, that they were able to turn it around this quickly. It was house money, and they're just excited for the future. So
that's a great point. Great point. I mean, for the Broncos, the season was already a success. For the Bills, you have bigger fish to fry. You know what I mean? That's just kind of what it is. Would have been a cool upset, like a Cinderella type upset. We both had Denver covering the spread here. Thought that their defense would kind of hold their own a little bit more. But at the same time, the offense, after their first drive, fell apart. So obviously we were way off on this one. Should have trusted Josh Allen in Buffalo in January. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I might be a little bit of a hater as a Jet fan. It's hard sometimes to put your fandom aside, and I'm sure you might feel that a little bit when it comes to the Eagles and Commanders at this point. It does suck. It's got to suck for you a little more than most fans because every other division, either the team is out in the Bucs or one team left. But that NFC East, they got two teams, while every other division's got one.
So it's a problem, dude. It's a problem. The Giants just feel like they're light years behind the rest of the division compared to other teams. So it is tough. But, speaking of that NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles took care of business 22-10 over the Packers. For the Packers, Jordan Love threw for 212, 3 picks. We talked about it earlier. Do you still consider him the future? I'm like, yes, I do. This is a tough matchup. Hey, no excuses. He played awful, 100%. But, you got to still move forward with Jordan Love. Josh Jacobs ran for 81 yards and a touchdown. However, 18 carries, a long of 31. So that Philly run defense with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis up the middle, Zach Bond at linebacker. They lost Nakobe Dean, so that's going to potentially hurt them down the stretch here. But, that defense has really stood up for Philadelphia. And for the receiving game for Green Bay, I mean, it was kind of what we feared. What happened was like, okay, there's no Christian Watson, no one to push the ball downfield. And it was spread out like it usually is. And they got more injuries throughout the game. Jaden Reed got knocked out. I believe Wicks got knocked out as well. So they really, Dobbs got knocked out. So they really were just.
Dobbs, I know, got knocked out. Yeah. Because he had the concussion hat on and still got a concussion.
I know that was a tough look, but it's really just the Packers just didn't have the firepower here. I thought their defense did enough for them to win this game. I mean, allowing Philadelphia only score 22. Granted, if Barkley doesn't slide down there, it's 29. But, he made the smart football move where they secured the win. Barkley ran for 119. No touchdown, though. Busting a lot of people's parlays, I'm sure. Jalen Hurts threw 2 touchdowns to Goddard. No, I did not take Barkley. I took Hurts. I took Hurts to score, but there were no tush pushes in this game, so that was tough. It was Jahan Dotson scoring the first touchdown, his only catch of the night. And Dallas Goedert scored, but that Goedert touchdown was pretty badass, the stiff arms. But, I think this is a good win for Philadelphia. A game we both expected them to win. I did anticipate Green Bay playing them a little bit tougher. I didn't think Jordan Love was going to throw 3 picks. I mean, it is Toyotathon, so not a good look for next season when I'm going to talk about Jordan Love and Toyotathon down the stretch again. But, hey, Philadelphia got the job done. Move it on.
Yeah, then Philly looked good to me, and a lot of people were like, Hurts didn't look great, but he still had a great QBR. I mean, he did what he needed to on offense. The defense obviously is played out of their mind. Just, holding a good offense to 10 points is always a huge positive. I mean, I'm excited to see that Rams matchup with them next week to see, if the Philly beats them good again or if the Rams made the adjustments since the last time they met. And then on the Green Bay side of things, man, it's such a weird spot because I think if you take away like the name, the Green Bay Packers, and you just like put their resume and the fact that they do have the youngest team on paper or the youngest average age, then it's like, all right, this season was a success. But the fact that it's the Packers who have been a perennial playoff team every year, the fact that they were in the playoffs last year and made it to the next round, it's like, is this really a step, like a good season? It's hard to say because they are the youngest team in the league. But at the end of the day, you won a game last year and you took a step back the next year. So it's like, to me, I would say, it's a failure of a season. And I'm sure most Packer fans would say that. But, if you do blind resume test, it's a success. So that's a weird thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think the noise coming out of Green Bay today is they got to do better against the top tier teams.
They didn't beat
It's like
anybody.
they took care of the teams that they should take care of, but in a division where you have Detroit, which is going to be good for several years, Minnesota just won 14 games. You got to get through Philadelphia. That's going to be a problem every year with how that team is built. You got to do better against those teams in your own conference. Like, it's not even like we're talking about you got to beat Buffalo and Baltimore. It's like you got to show the teams in your conference that you can make a run just like any of them that can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised now, like thinking more about this, that you took the Packers to actually take a step and go farther next year. Because I mean, they went 1-5 in their division this year, and like their one fluky blocked kick against the Bears from going 0-6 in their division this year. So they really like beat up on the out of conference and out of division teams, but they couldn't get the job done in their division. So if that stands pat next year, like they're going to be going on the road right away, just out of the gate next year. And on top of that, like they lost to the Eagles twice too. So 6 of their losses came to Eagles, Vikings, and Lions. And then you add in the Bears there, who the Bears really weren't a good team. They were on a 10-game losing streak and they lost to the Bears. So, I mean, really, Green Bay, like, what's their best signature win this year? The Seahawks? Like, and yeah, I guess it still is a 10-win team. So, in most situations, that is a playoff team, but
not this year.
Yeah.
Not this year. All right, let's move on. The Commanders, we talked about earlier, Jaden Daniels. Beast. They take care of Tampa Bay 23-20 here. Jaden was awesome. Threw for 268, 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher actually at 36 yards, which is kind of crazy. But then again, that's not how you beat Tampa Bay is on the ground. Brian Robinson 10 for 16. You beat Tampa Bay through the air. Jaden Daniels did that. Terry McLaurin, you got to feel happy for the guy. The quarterbacks he's played with in his career, how many years he's been in the league. Finally, this breakthrough season for the Commanders. He has 89 yards and a touchdown in this game. De'Ami Brown added a touchdown and also 89 yards. So that was great. For Tampa Bay, we touched on it. Baker earlier, $185, 2 touchdowns. Bucky Irving, 17 for 77. Very interesting, Reagan. Rachaad White had 1 carry. Bucky Irving took over the starting role three weeks ago. And, when Rachaad White was starting, they were kind of splitting, and it started to lean in Bucky's favor, but it went all the way to Bucky Irving, which you got to think going into next season, it's going to be full go Bucky Irving from the jump, and Rock White's got to be concerned about his role in Tampa Bay.
Good job, Luke Young. Thanks for trading me multiple first-rounders for White, buddy. Who could have seen that coming? No, I'm just messing with you, Luke. You'll get there one day, champ. But yeah, no, I mean, that was definitely interesting to me. I didn't think it would be like that dominant of a timeshare, or I mean, that dominant of a lion share for Bucky, because, White was involved a lot down the stretch. And even, what's his name? Sean Tucker even had carved out a little bit of a role. So I didn't expect that. I mean, obviously he was running the ball well throughout the game, Bucky. So, and it has been running the ball hard down the stretch. But to me, I mean, Baker obviously had, like, you could probably make a case that he had a top 5 season this year. I mean, his numbers were through the chart. I mean, ever since, coming to Tampa Bay, it's really rejuvenated his career. And, he got it going early with Mike Evans. But I don't know. I just think you got to kind of stick to what worked into the regular season. And they kind of let the Commanders dictate how the game was going to go. And also, I think Bulls kind of came into the game thinking that, like, hey, this is the same Jaden Daniels we played in week 1. Like, we're going to be able to blitz him, make him uncomfortable. And, like, obviously game 1 versus game 18 is going to be a completely different quarterback. And that was evident too. So I think, the Commanders won this game, and obviously it was close. It's a 3-point game, so let's not overreact. And another interesting stat I saw is that the last 5 Commander games, they've won all of them, but they've also been decided on the last play of the game. Isn't that crazy?
The last 5?
Yeah. Is that not because it was the field goal?
Nuts.
It was against Dallas last week with Mariota.
Yeah.
Then there was the overtime against Atlanta, and I forget the other 2, but I saw it. It was a graphic. Their last 5 games have been
They beat Philadelphia. They beat Philadelphia on that throw by Jaden Daniels.
Oh, and then the Saints one ended on the defensive stop.
That's right. That's right.
Is that not crazy that their last 5 games? I wonder, Walmart will probably be like, I knew that. But I think most people don't realize, like, that is insane. 5 straight games where it came down to the wire. I mean, Commanders fans, like, you might want to see the cardiologist.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see after the season what their record was in 1-score games. I just know that's a stat that's very difficult to replicate year over year. Is that
true.
success in those tight games? So, I mean, right now you don't give a shit as a Commanders fan. You're just happy to be going to Detroit next week. But that is interesting that you brought that up. 5 straight games.
Might have to keep that one for next year. That's definitely a hater stack. Because remember the Vikings 2 years ago, the year they lost to the Giants in the first round of the playoffs.
That was the thing. It's like the Vikings went like 12-1 in one-score games. You cannot replicate that.
And then they were 7-10. Yeah, 7-10 the next year. So I guess Commanders fans enjoy it now because next year you're going to be a non-playoff team.
History says you're winning 7 games next year. So.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's definitely something to keep an eye on going into next year. But for now, I mean, hey, maybe you got Team of Destiny vibes. I mean, I think that is a matchup between the Commanders and the Lions where, like, no matter what, I don't think America's mad with the winner. I would say more people are probably rooting for the Lions, but I think no matter what, people are happy. And then that team is just the de facto team they want to win the Super Bowl.
My question for you, if you're Detroit, would you have rather played Minnesota, who you just beat up on, although they were a better team all season, or Washington?
Washington for sure, because they beat up on them last week, but the first matchup was close, and it's just like the teams are so familiar with each other. Like, I still think their style of football, like, most teams can't play that. Like, it's gonna be so tough for the Commanders because Detroit's just so physical. Like, a lot of teams just haven't seen that, where at least Minnesota, you could be like, yeah, they've seen it. So I think they would have been still wanting to play the Commanders.
I agree with you. Just wanted to see because it is interesting. They just beat up on Minnesota, but it's also like if you see a team twice in 3 weeks, they're still fresh in your mind and you're going to have a better game plan. Granted, it goes both ways, right? But Detroit already had a phenomenal game plan. So you can't just walk into the game with the same game plan if they were to have to play Minnesota again, because Kevin O'Connell would make adjustments. But speaking of those Minnesota Vikings, it doesn't matter because they got their ass kicked by the Rams last night, Monday night. I mean, let's start with the Rams here because a lot to say about the Vikings. Stafford, what he does, 18-3 in December, January, and February with McVay. That is a crazy stat. Threw for 209 and 2 touchdowns. Kyren Williams, 16 for 76, added a touchdown through the air. The other touchdown, of course, everyone had in their bet slips, Davis Allen. But, a lot of field goals, it's okay. The Rams, they got the win. Their defense showed up, allowing Minnesota to only 9 points in this one. And it was that pass rush. I believe they had like 8 dudes that had at least half a sack, which is just nuts.
Yeah, and I know that. Yeah, they had 9. I'll check while you're still going, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 dudes with at least half a sack.
That's crazy. Sack party.
9 total. And they
definitely got an Xbox achievement on that one.
100%. Dude, that's 50 G's right there. But for Darnold, threw for 245, a touchdown, a pick. Run game, Aaron Jones, 13 for 48. Not really there. Hockenson looked solid, 5 for 64, a touchdown. Jefferson, 5 for 58. Missed opportunities. Naylor had 33. Missed opportunities. Addison, 29. Missed opportunities. Darnold missed on a lot of throws that he was making all year. He had a lot of time all year. That Minnesota offensive line is awesome. But this Rams team had a phenomenal game plan. They dominated up front. The Minnesota offensive line could not handle the twists. They could not handle the blitzes that were coming from the slot corners as well. Darnold also did not help himself, holding the ball so goddamn long all night. I think everyone was looking at the TV like, Sam, throw the fucking ball. Throw it to a receiver, get the ball out quick, or throw it away. He was trying to do way too much, kept getting him way behind the sticks where they didn't have an opportunity for a comeback effort. It was extremely frustrating to watch. And now you have this conversation. If you're the Vikings, it's like, okay, Sam won us 14 games. But when it mattered most, with a chance to clinch the 1 seed, he sucked. And then in the first round of the playoffs, he sucked even more. And now it's like, are you comfortable giving him a big deal? I'm not. I think they're going to tag Sam Darnold, maybe run it back for another year, maybe trade him. I don't know, but I think there's no way now, after what we saw Sam Darnold do in the clutch when it mattered most, he wet his pants, to be honest with you. I don't think there's any way they give him a 4-year, $160, $170, $180 million deal like we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, somebody will. I think they tag him at the very least. And then once you tag him, then somebody will probably trade some, valuable assets to pay him because teams are just so desperate. And at the end of the day, like he did ball out in the season, whether that's the system or not. I mean, he made huge improvements. And yeah, he did falter under pressure. But at the end of the day, like you can't take away from how good he was and how good of a season this was. Um, on the Vikings side of things, I mean, that offensive line, I mean, I thought they were better than that. So that was, very embarrassing to see. I would have thought, Jefferson would have had a better game, Hawkins and some of those guys. Even Aaron Jones, like Akers, they kind of abandoned the run. And I guess you kind of had to because the Rams kind of ran away with this. And that, obviously that verse touchdown is really when the game kind of felt over to me, where it was like, all right, like this one's over. The Vikings are going to need some heroics, and they just never got going after that.
Yeah, that fumble was tough out of Sam, dude.
Yeah, and I mean, on the Rams side of things, I mean, obviously Stafford did what he needed to do. I mean, Kupp and Nakua were non-factors, and they still won. So that's the scary thing. Like, this Rams team was able to win with their defense, Kyron and Stafford, and didn't need their two elite wide receivers to get it done. It was the Tyler Higbee show.
Yes, who left with the chest injury. McVay says he should be good, but he did have to go to the hospital. And that sucked because Higbee, I feel like he's very, very slept on. Tore his ACL in the wildcard round last year. So this is only his third game this season, but he had 5 for 58 in the first half on 5 targets. Like, holy shit. Like, Stafford loves throwing the ball to Higbee, and then he was gone. And then it's like Nakua had a 27-yard catch right away, and then had 17 yards the rest of the game, which when did we ever see that at Puka Nakua? But it didn't matter. The Rams still hung 27 and won with ease, which is scary. You got to be a little bit concerned if you're Philadelphia, how easily they took care of Minnesota for a team that has shown they can get hot at this time of the season.
Yeah, I wonder why, because I don't, I obviously, like, he benched all of his starters, and I don't think it was for like a matchup reasoning. I think it was probably just the fact that he's like, hey, I don't care if we play Washington or Minnesota or Detroit. I just think our team will be best serviced with being fresh. So I think, that's paying dividends. And I could see now that becoming more of a trend going forward where it's like, hey, we already clinched the playoffs. Like, who cares who we play? We're guaranteed a first-round home playoff game. Let's get everybody fresh versus trying to put them out and fight for the difference between the 3-4 seed. So clearly that made the difference because Minnesota, had to go all out on Sunday Night Football a week ago while the Rams, all their key players sat out. So clearly that was the difference.
100%, dude. And that was what I was kind of like wrestling with last week when I was going to make this pick. Because this was the shortest spread at a 1.5 when we picked it. I think when it went to neutral site, I think Minnesota actually got up to like 2.5, 3 points, right?
Yeah.
When it was in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Like, for me, Minnesota's a better team all year. I know the Rams beat them early in the season, but it's like, from what you saw, they were more consistent. They had a better season, but I was like, you know what? They just geared up for a battle against Detroit for the 1 seed. And going into that game, it's like you got to almost feel a little bummed out where it's like in the back of the players' minds, was it there where it's like, damn, we could have had a bye this week if we showed up last week? It's not even like you lost a close one in heartbreaking fashion where you still played a good game against another elite team. You kind of got your ass kicked. And that's a tough way to go into the playoffs for any team. But for just what was at stake for that game to then just do a quick turnaround and have to travel on the road now and play a Rams team that just sat all of their starters that are fresh. Dude, I don't know. I mean, that's one I'm definitely kicking myself for.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. I was on Minnesota. I was like, I'm done fading these guys because they burnt me so many times. So sometimes you jump off the ship at the wrong time.
Hey, and I know that we heard a lot of slack from Minnesota fans preseason on YouTube that were like,
we were still way
crazy.
Wrong.
We were way wrong. I think we had the Vikings at like 7 wins and they doubled it. But, at least we're not going to sit here and be like, okay, they actually made a run to the Super Bowl. So, and also at least that jackass that I met at the Yankees-Mets game did it, I don't have to give him $100.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that guy's, that guy's your father, but,
oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. We're not going to end the pod like that, my friend.
Yeah. We'll end it in the sense that, we are selling crew necks. Please buy them. I mean, I know a lot of you guys hit on Nico Collins, so why don't you use that money to buy a crew neck? They're really nice. They're not really comfy, cozy, like Drock says. So, people buy them. We still got a lot left, a lot of different colors, a lot of different sizes. Support the boys. And, wherever you are listening to this right now, I mean, if you're not subscribed, which I know a lot of you people aren't, we view the analytics, just come on, subscribe. Help us out. Even if you don't have an account, create an account, subscribe. It only helps us grow, or follow us, whatever it is, whatever platform you're on.
We appreciate it very much. We'll be back later this week for the divisional round predictions.